Welcome back. The doctor is in. This is Doc Swift, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the world building that went into my new novel, The Last Warpiper. Today, what I'm going to be talking about is the magic system in The Last Warpiper. Now, you can find all kinds of different ways to go about creating the magic system for your fantasy setting. So I'm not going to speak so much about generalities as my thought process for creating the magic system in The Last Warpiper. So fantasy worlds, you have two types of magic systems. You have hard systems and soft systems. The soft magic systems are fairly nebulous and undefined. Magic just works. Wizards can just wave their hands and accomplish great magical feats with no explanation of how they go about doing it. There are either no rules at all, or the rules are inconsistent and meaningless. If you look at Harry Potter, for example, they always talk about how, you need your magic wands to do your magic, and then half the time they don't use a magic wand. Then they have all these magic creatures and magic devices with no explanation of how those work. So I'm not a big fan of that. You can also look at Lord of the Rings to a certain extent, where Gandalf simply does or knows things without any mechanism showing how he does it. Hard magic systems are a little more rigorous. You have a lot of detail given about the underpinnings and the mechanisms, and there are limitations that are well stated. One of the magic systems for the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons system of the 1990s was the Dark Sun setting, where using magic had significant and sometimes terrible consequences. It was pretty much stated that the reason the world had been laid waste was because of unrestricted magic use, draining the life from all the forests and desolating the landscape as a result. Other D&D systems have rules in which casting spells requires components, whether vocal or gestural, physical items. For instance, if you don't have a glass rod, you can't cast a lightning bolt. Fantasy fiction series with hard magic systems are more rational. That is to say, there are consequences for using the magic. For The Last Warpiper, magic is fairly well defined, but it's not common. You won't find wizards casting spells and altering the reality of the world with ease. Instead, I wanted magic to be very limited, and I wanted it to be costly. Instead of magic being simply enacted by a wizard to accomplish some desired effect, I wanted to make it so that humans can't just cast spells at all. The only, I would say, natural magic is limited to monsters, such as dragons breathing fire. For humans to use those sorts of effects, they need to harvest body parts from the monsters in order to use that power for their own purposes. The body part has to be intact, and then the humans have to carve runes relating to the magical effect into the object. The main character in The Last Warpiper, his warpipes are made from the throat sac of a dragon, and runes have to be carved into it to allow him to activate the fire-breathing nature of that body part. But having the right components in that respect is only part of the formula. You can't just strap on the bagpipes and blast fire immediately. First, you have to activate the magic. The monsters don't have to worry about that. It's part of their body. It's just natural for them to do it. For the humans to reactivate a severed body part from a monster to accomplish the same effect that that body part delivered for the monster when it was alive and attached, the magic has to be powered by the user. That is to say, they have to use some of their life force in order to activate the magic. they have to, for the Last Warpiper, they have to cut themselves and smear fresh blood on the runes while speaking the runes aloud. And that creates a connection through their blood, through the living blood, to the dead tissue that drains some of the user's life force and activates the magic. There are no loopholes for this. You can't smear someone else's blood on the runes and then activate the weapon, for example. There are consequences to this. If you overuse the magic, you'll use up your life force and become weak and unable to activate the magic later in life. So it's something of a conservation of energy. I'm a scientist. I know a lot about thermodynamics. Conservation of energy is going to feature quite heavily in many of my fantasy worlds. In regards to magic, I don't like the notion of a free ride. So whenever there are magic systems that I'll be devising, there's going to have to be a source for the energy of the magic. In the Last Warpiper, there are no magic swords, there are no wands, there are no magical cloaks, unless those devices came from a monster and that body part was tied to the beast's magic power. And even in that case, trying to activate that body power is going to draw from the user in order to function. I think this is a unique magic system. There are real consequences for using any of these magical devices. And obviously, there are consequences for those monsters whose body parts can be used to make these magic weapons. If the humans really want them, they have to go out and hunt these monsters, almost certainly take a lot of casualties. So what you find are these weapons and devices are passed down, father to son, or within a family group, within the Warpipers. If they're not passed down within the family, they'd be passed down to others in the military unit. There are a couple of hints that the gods of this world had the ability to enact magic without requiring parts of monsters. However, that's not going to be a big issue to deal with, because in the past of this world, within living memory, the gods fought a terrible war against the monsters, and the gods died. So there are no gods to go around casting spells with impunity anymore. It's kind of you might look at it as a cheat, you might look at it as a loophole, a cop-out, but it allows me to remain consistent with magic in this setting. And that's all I have to say about the magic system in the Last Warpiper. I still need to make a video talking about the dragons, and we'll look at doing that next time. Thanks for listening. The Doctor is out.